Dallas versus Fort Worth. Let's get it on. In this video, I'm going to cover 8 pros and cons, the things that you want to know whenever you're thinking of relocating, such as the cost of living, the crime rate, the education, things that will help you decide whether or not you want to live your life in Dallas or Fort Worth. Are you ready? Hi, I'm Tracy Sorrell with the DFW Life, and I like to think that I offer, a unique perspective of living in our Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. Why? Well, because I've lived in both. I've lived in the Dallas side of our Metroplex and our Fort Worth sector. You know, being raised in Dallas, being from Dallas, you have a sense of entitlement, maybe a sense of even arrogance, because you don't think there's another city greater than Dallas. Fort Worth is about 32 miles west of Dallas, and although on the map it doesn't feel very far, they're worlds apart. And people in Dallas don't typically feel there is even a need to go to Fort Worth because everything you need, could want, could desire is absolutely in Dallas. Now, when I graduated high school, went off to college to the University of Texas there in Austin, hook 'em horns, I realized a lot of things were not as they seem. And I wanted a different option for myself and for my family. And eventually I was able to move back to our Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. And when I returned, I landed on the Fort Worth side. So I have the experience of living in both of these areas, and they both offer such a wonderful, unique life, whichever lifestyle fits you better. And we're gonna go over 8 points to help you realize which one that is. Well, let's just kick it off with number 1, and that's the vibes of the two cities. Well, in Dallas, you have so much sophistication. There is so much culture. Dallas is the sexy, get the best press because there's so much to do in Dallas. On the Dallas side, it's a little bit more liberal than the Fort Worth side, which is a little bit more conservative. On the Fort Worth side, you have more of the Western culture. This is where you can see the real cowboys and cattle drive down the street going toward our stockyard. So in Fort Worth, with the Western culture, that's where you're gonna see the live rodeos, the competitions. There's so much to do in Fort Worth. So you have to decide which lifestyle better fits you. In Dallas, let me tell you, lace up your tennis shoes, get your energy drink, get your mind right, because you are going to be running, going at a very fast pace. In Fort Worth, it's a little bit more laid back. You can actually take a breath and not start your panic before 7 o'clock in the morning. But in Dallas, you have to hit the ground running or you just may be left behind. In Dallas, you have the unique flavor of shopping, elite exclusive shopping, as well as elite exclusive restaurants that you can enjoy in Dallas. Now, you still have some of those in Fort Worth, but on a much smaller scale. So I don't want you to think Fort Worth lacks sophistication of culture. Oh, to the contrary. Fort Worth is a very classy, sophisticated community and city. It's just on a much smaller scale than Dallas, and it has more of a Western culture, especially the closer you get to the stockyards in downtown. But farther out from Fort Worth, you won't even notice the big difference between Dallas and Fort Worth. So that is a sneak peek of, hey, just what is the different vibe between these two cities within this major metroplex. And that brings me to number 2, the population of Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. Think of it this way, you know the expression, everything is bigger and better in Texas? Well, it certainly is the truth here in our DFW Metroplex. If you take a look at a map, a US map, Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex is larger than Connecticut, Delaware, and Rhode Island combined. Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex is the 4th largest metroplex in the US, followed by New York, LA, and Chicago. So that tells you this is a pretty serious area. So almost anything you need, you can find right here in DFW Metroplex. Now, being the 4th largest metroplex in the country, that comes with a lot of pros and cons. but I want to hone down and really give you a perspective of what you're going to deal with when you're here in our Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. So we already know that the Metroplex alone is larger than 3 other states combined. Our Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex is comprised of 200 cities. And so when you consider the population of our Metroplex, Dallas versus Fort Worth, the landmass, Dallas and Fort Worth, they are very, very similar. But you have about 3,800 more people who live in Dallas versus Fort Worth. So Dallas is very dense, whereas in Fort Worth, you've got a little room to kind of stretch your legs and room to grow. In Dallas, you have a lot more of the concrete city because it's a big city, right? Dallas, and it's more dense. In Fort Worth, you're gonna see more preservation of trees and the rivers, and there's just a different vibe between the two. But again, with them being 32 miles apart, you can live in Fort Worth and hop over and enjoy the things in Dallas, or vice versa. Maybe you like that fast pace, you like that get up and go, and you like the busyness of Dallas and the industry and all of the energy there. And you can drive over to Fort Worth when you want a little respite and just a little slower pace. And the one thing I hear from people when they're relocating to our DFW Metroplex is, Tracy, which side of DFW is more diverse? Well, here's my honest opinion. You're gonna get diversity whether you choose to live in the Dallas section or the Fort Worth section, because this is a major global metroplex. People come here from all over the world. You may find more diversity on the Dallas side because remember, they have nearly 400,000 more people than on the Fort Worth side. But you're not gonna feel like, oh, living in Fort Worth is not diverse, there's not enough of this culture, that culture. Remember, Fort Worth is very similar to Dallas, except on a smaller scale. Well, let's talk about the things to do in Dallas versus Fort Worth. And remember, 32 miles apart, whatever one has that the other one doesn't, hop in your car and off you go. But in general, the things to do in Dallas is everything to do is in Dallas. Dallas has about 6 professional sporting teams. So if you're into that, that's great. Whether it's men's or women's basketball, soccer, ice hockey, except if it's football. So if you're wanting to watch the Dallas Cowboys play, well, that's actually in Arlington, another city that's between Dallas and Fort Worth. If you're interested in the Rangers, baseball, again, that's in Arlington. The amusement park, Six Flags, Arlington, but it's still part of our Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. But in Dallas, this is where you have a lot of the museums, a lot of culture, a lot of things to experience in Dallas. And in Fort Worth, you still have a lot of things to do. You have the rodeos, the competition. I can tell you this, from a practical standpoint, Dallas versus Fort Worth, downtown is a big, big clue to how you want to live your life because it gives you a reflection of the vibe. So in downtown Fort Worth, you can park your car and walk from restaurant to restaurant. You can walk to the shops, boutiques. You can walk to Sundance Square and just listen to live music and just really feel a sense of relaxation. Now on the Dallas side, it's a lot busier. It's not as walkable when you're downtown. You're not going to just, hey, let me park my car at this restaurant. You know what? I think I want to go shopping and just walk around in peaceful and relaxation because it's so much more busy. Now you can pay and you can park in both cities, but you're going to, if walking is your thing, you know, you want to just take the day and walk around downtown and see so much the beauty and the water and whatever you can see there and enjoy, then you're going to enjoy that on the Fort Worth side much more than Dallas. Now, Dallas has made huge improvements in improving the quality of life and enjoyment that you would find downtown. It's not quite caught up with Fort Worth, but they are making so many strides there. You will find sections of the near downtown that you can enjoy and just kind of hang out, dog parks, and things like that. And you can do that in both cities. The other thing you're going to notice is the Trinity River. Now, you're thinking to yourself, big deal, Trinity River, but it's pretty significant in our DFW Metroplex. On the Fort Worth side, the Trinity River is well maintained. There's actually water, lots of water in the Trinity River on the Fort Worth side. You can walk around the miles and miles of trails around the Trinity River on the Fort Worth side. During festivals and different celebrations, you can get a tube, you can get a raft, and you can get into the water and just relax and enjoy the fireworks, enjoy the parks, enjoy the river on the Fort Worth side. Now in Dallas, it's drier. In Dallas, it's not as developed. It's not as people friendly to enjoy the Trinity River. They're working on it, but it's not quite there. So if you want to just chill out and enjoy the river, enjoy just tubing and not have to drive all the way to Bastrop or toward Austin for that experience, then you can do that on the Fort Worth side of just relaxing and tubing on the river. Now, the other two things I really want to point out is in Dallas, you do have the state fair. And if you've not gone to the state fair in Dallas, you've not lived your life. Your life is not as complete until you try out our state fair, Texas. Anything that we can grab, we're going to deep fry. Candy, cookies, cake, pickles, bread, sandwich, steaks, whatever it is, it's going into the fryer. So that is such an incredible experience. But in addition to food, there are a lot of wonderful world-class exhibits that you can attend at the State Fair. And the big icon of the Texas State Fair is Big Tex. On the Fort Worth part, Fort Worth is nationally renowned for its zoo. Yeah, Dallas has a zoo. I mean, most cities have a zoo. But in Fort Worth, that's where they have the accolades, the acclaim, the awards, the reputation of having one of the nicest, top ranked, top tier zoos in the entire country. And number 4, transportation and traffic, because we can't have one without the other. In Texas, people travel, the primary mode of transportation is by car. And we can get those cars to our children and as young as 16. And if you have a hardship license, it could be as young as 13. So you have a lot of people on our Texas roads, especially in DFW Metroplex, because remember, Dallas and Fort Worth, they have the same landmass, practically same, but on the Dallas side, you have almost 400,000 more people. So imagine a lot of more cars on the Dallas side than on the Fort Worth side. So with the more cars you have, the more opportunity for distracted drivers that of course can lead to traffic jams, accidents, all kinds of things that would keep you on the road a little longer. So whether it's Dallas or Fort Worth, my recommendation is to pack your patience. And furthermore, the best housewarming gift I could give to you if you relocate to Dallas Fort Worth is a toll pass, which allows you to drive on our roads. Well, it's not free, it's a toll pass, but to drive on our roads and stay out of traffic. So it's well worth your investment to pay to drive on our roads, because if you want to save a little money, then you're going to spend a lot of time to save a couple of dimes. So my recommendation again, go ahead and just pay whatever it takes to drive on our roads, because it can really make or break your peace and your sanity for the whole day. So back to our roads, back to our transportation. With Dallas being more dense, the city has provided for its citizens more transportation, public transportation. Remember, there's like 400,000 more people there. And with that, they have a bus system in Dallas Area Rapid Transit that, allows people to really get around Dallas fairly well. Exceptionally well. They have spent a lot of time, research, and ingenuity to get people where they need to be on the Dallas side. However, on the Fort Worth, now they do have public transportation. It's very, very limited. It's the Trinity Rail and Trinity Metro. The Trinity Rail has a very limited schedule because there's just not as many people there who would take advantage of the public transportation, because on the Fort Worth side, it's a lot more sprawled out. There's a lot more growth going on to where it's really hard to have a lot of buses scheduled, because you just don't have the same volume of people who would actually use that resource. Between Dallas and Fort Worth, if public transportation is a main factor, a major decision for you as far as where to live, then there's no doubt, there's just no dispute whatsoever. Dallas is the place for you. And number 5, I know this is very important to you, one of those things that you have to know before you go, and that is cost of living. Between Dallas and Fort Worth, they're going to be very similar. However, on the Dallas side, it's going to be a little bit more expensive to live there. And one of your biggest ticket items would be the prices of the homes. If you compare same home, Dallas, Fort Worth, is probably going to be a little bit more expensive being on the Dallas side. Well, the pros of living in Dallas is you have more job opportunities. There's more employment there. And in many cases, Dallas will get paid more to work in the city of Dallas than maybe in the city of Fort Worth. But guess what? You can work in Dallas and live in Fort Worth. And in Fort Worth is where you have the slower pace and just drive to work those 32 miles to Dallas and get the higher pay. You know, it's up to you. Which leads me to number 6, which is the homes in Dallas or in Fort Worth. I'm going to give you an overview of DFW and the houses in DFW, especially knowing that you may be coming from East Coast, West Coast, just a different environment altogether. And I want to set your expectation. The one thing that you won't find typically in our Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex are basements. We just don't use basements. Now, sometimes if it's an older home, there may be a storm shelter. But if it's a newer, and newer is all relative because when you're in major cities, there's not a lot that is new unless we're talking new construction, and that's a whole different beast. But for the sake of just what you will see on average in Dallas and Fort Worth, you won't see the storm shelters unless it's situated on a home with a very large lot. Typically, if you see something that resembles a shelter, that's going to be more of a safe room or rooms in a home. The other thing you may not see very often is the primary suite on the second floor. Our homes usually have primary suites on the first floor. So those are just a couple little insights so you can have a proper expectation for the types and styles of homes that we have here in our Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. Now, if you are thinking of living in Dallas or Fort Worth, we're not going to talk about the suburbs right now. Let's talk about those homes. Each of these cities, you have the wealthy, you have the uber rich, you have people who are in certain pockets of these cities that are generational homes. These are homes that are in the neighborhoods that are very sought after. You want to say you live in this zip code in this area of Dallas or Fort Worth. You're very insulated in these areas from what maybe the average people who live in these cities have to deal with, which could be some struggles, challenges, as well as some rewards. Now, you still have people that may not be in those particular pockets, but they love the urban lifestyle. They want to live, they want to support and see growth, development, and resources in Dallas and Fort Worth, and they're very committed to the cause. They too have generation of family members and family that have lived in Dallas, they've lived in Fort Worth, and that's their home, that's where they plan to live. So you have people who are very committed to living in the actual big city of Dallas and of Fort Worth. The other lifestyle we offer as far as home and construction, we have townhomes, we have condos. So if you're used to coming from an area that has the brownstones and different things like that, sort of like the New York bodegas, we have that here where you open your door and you have the conveniences of stores, restaurants, very walkable and very close by. So if that's something you're interested in, you're going to definitely get that in certain areas of Dallas and certain areas of Fort Worth. Now that brings us to number 7, which is the crime rate. Hey, Tracy, is this place safe for me to live? Dallas versus Fort Worth. I'm going to answer that giving you the state average and comparing these cities to that average. Dallas is going to be considered a higher crime rate than Fort Worth, and that kind of makes sense. More people live there. On the state average, in comparison to the state average, Dallas has about 48.9% above the state average for the crime rate. Fort Worth is about 11.8% over the state average. So I think that answers your question. But here's something important that I know you realize, but I want to remind you. Criminals do have transportation. So even if you feel as though you live in the safest place known to man, criminals can hop in their cars and pay you a visit. Now, if you're planning to do a jog at night, or you want to walk around outside at night, walk around downtown and just a nice leisurely stroll, my advice to you would be like anywhere else you decide to live, be very aware of your environment. Just make sure you're safe, and please practice good judgment. And this brings us to number 8, the last one, and that is education. Dallas versus Fort Worth. Well, even if you don't have a student moving into schools and education doesn't seem to be a big deal to you, to me, it's always a big deal when it comes to reselling your home, because a lot of equity is pulled together based on the school ratings in your neighborhood. So if you're deciding to move in Dallas or Fort Worth, we're not considering the suburbs because the suburbs are smaller and usually they're more insulated. But if you're thinking of Dallas versus Fort Worth ISD, then this is what I would encourage you to do for your research. Visit Texas Education Agency, and this is an objective site which ranks, rates, and provides demographics for you. So you not only will you know about the school districts, but you'll know about the schools within the school districts. And they will also tell you about preparedness and readiness for college, the results of standardized tests that are given to the different students. So you can get an idea of what would be the best fit for you and for your student. The one thing I want to share with you is that being a part of Dallas Independent School District or Fort Worth Independent School District, there are a lot of resources that they offer to their students. Whether you skew more toward the gifted and the extremely high intelligence, or if you have a student who needs more support academically, socially, emotionally, they will have the resources that you need for your child to be successful. There are a lot of programs out there to get these students ready for the real world, a lot of programs that give them their certifications that they will have even before they graduate. So get to know those school districts very intimately to make a decision where you want your students to go. I know a lot of people moving toward the suburbs for a number of reasons, for great opportunity, but there are wonderful opportunities right there in both Dallas and Fort Worth. So I think you'll have the education section covered whichever way you want to go. The bigger the city, the more resources and the more opportunities that may be there. But again, there's always trade-offs. The bigger the city, the greater the challenges and the greater opportunities there are for maybe your student to kind of get distracted by things that have nothing to do with education. The one thing I want to brag on, both Dallas and Fort Worth, our DFW Metroplex, is we have more than 40 colleges and universities here in DFW. And I would say the flagship university for Dallas is Southern Methodist University, that's SMU. The flagship for Fort Worth is Texas Christian University, TCU. So either way, you are well taken care of in the area of education in Dallas or in Fort Worth. Well, that wraps up our 8 pros and cons, whether you should live in Dallas or Fort Worth. I know it's not always an easy choice when you're relocating to decide where you want to live. Email me, comment, give me a call, and I want to help you realize where you want to create your memories and call home. Is it in Dallas or Fort Worth?